You're driving, traffic is moving, everything is fine. Then it happens. A car cuts across 2 lanes without signalling, forces you into the brake, nearly clips your front bumper. You don't see the driver, you don't need to, you already know. You look at the badge on the back, the Roundel, blue, white, round BMW. You exhale, slow nod, of course. Here's the thing, that reaction, that quiet, of course. It happens to millions of people in dozens of countries, across cultures that have almost nothing else in common. And here's what nobody tells you. The science partially agrees. Not completely, not cleanly, but enough to make this genuinely uncomfortable. Because what the research actually found isn't just about BMW drivers. It's about what happens when a brand becomes a mirror for a very specific kind of person, and then that mirror reflects so much of that personality that it starts attracting those people on purpose. This is the BMW effect, and by the end of this video, you'll never look at a car badge the same way again. Let's start with what we actually know. In 2013, researchers at the University of Nevada studied driving behavior, specifically who was most likely to cut off pedestrians at crosswalks. They tracked vehicle type, estimated vehicle cost, and recorded the behavior. The result? The more expensive the car, the more likely the driver was to behave aggressively. Luxury vehicle drivers, particularly men, were significantly more likely to cut off pedestrians than drivers of cheaper vehicles. BMW didn't get singled out in that study. But what came next did. A 2016 study out of Aarhus University in Denmark went further. They directly linked car brand preference, not just price, to personality traits. And BMW specifically showed one of the strongest associations with what psychologists call disagreeableness, a clinical term for low empathy, low cooperation, and high self-interest. Now, before you click off, disagreeableness isn't an insult. It's a spectrum. Every human has it. Surgeons score high, so do most CEOs. But here's where it gets interesting. The study wasn't just measuring driving behavior, it was measuring why someone chooses BMW in the first place. And that answer lives in something called the Dark Triad. The Dark Triad is a cluster of 3 personality traits that psychologists have studied for decades. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. Those words sound dramatic. They're not meant to be. At subclinical levels, which is what we're talking about here, these traits don't make someone a villain. They make someone ambitious, status-driven, willing to bend rules when the reward is high enough. Research consistently shows that people who score higher on Dark Triad traits are drawn to high-status symbols, use possessions to signal dominance, show less concern for how their behavior affects others around them. And here's where the BMW brand enters the equation. BMW's entire brand identity for decades has been built on one phrase: the ultimate driving machine, not the safest car, not the most comfortable, not the most economical. The ultimate driving machine, performance, dominance, control. That language doesn't attract everyone equally. It attracts a specific psychological profile with above-average precision. And once that profile starts buying the car, what happens next is where this gets dark. Here's a concept most people have never heard of: brand self-selection. It goes like this. A brand positions itself using specific signals, language, imagery, associations. That positioning attracts a certain type of person. That person buys the product. They're now visible using the product. Other people with similar psychology see them and feel drawn to the same product. They buy it. The brand hasn't changed. The marketing hasn't changed. But the customer base has self-sorted. The original signal acted like a frequency. Only certain receivers tuned in. Over time, the brand and the personality type fuse. You can't separate them anymore. BMW's signaling has always been about individual performance over collective comfort. The car is about you winning, your commute, your corner, your road. Compare that to, say, Volvo. Their entire identity is built on protection of the family, of the passengers, of others on the road. Different frequency, different receiver. This isn't accidental. Brand managers at these companies understand, often implicitly, that their messaging is a filter. And once the filter has been running for 30 years, the stereotype stops being a stereotype. It becomes a signal. But here's the part of this that never makes it into the psychology papers. The BMW driver who cuts you off in traffic, there's a reasonable chance they don't think of themselves as aggressive. They think of themselves as decisive. This is what psychologists call identity protective cognition. When a possession becomes part of your self-image, your brain actively defends behavior that would otherwise look antisocial. Cutting someone off in a Corolla feels like a mistake. Cutting someone off in a BMW feels like efficiency. The car didn't change the behavior. It changed the story the driver tells themselves about the behavior. And this is where brands become genuinely powerful and genuinely dangerous. Because every one of us does this. Not with BMW necessarily, but with something. The brand of watch that makes you feel like your time is valuable. The gym membership that makes you feel like you're someone who takes themselves seriously. The phone that costs $1,400 that makes you feel like you're not someone who buys the cheap option. We use objects to perform identity. BMW drivers are just more visible doing it at 80 miles an hour without using a turn signal. There's one final mechanism that locks this whole system in place. Confirmation bias. The BMW driver who signals perfectly, waits their turn, and lets you merge. You don't notice them. You don't notice them because your brain isn't looking for them. It's looking for confirmation of what it already believes. But the one who cuts you off, that one gets filed, stored, counted. So the stereotype becomes self-reinforcing. Not because all BMW drivers are aggressive, but because the ones who are stand out disproportionately in your memory. And the ones who aren't are invisible. The brand's identity, the self-selection loop, the identity armor, and your confirmation bias. All four of these systems running simultaneously create a feedback loop that's essentially impossible to escape from the outside. BMW's marketing team couldn't fix the reputation, even if they wanted to. And here's the uncomfortable truth they probably don't want you to realize. They don't want to fix it. Because the reputation is the product, the slight edge of aggression, the association with drivers who think they own the road. That's not a PR problem for BMW, that's their brand working. Earlier, I said the science partially agrees with the BMW stereotype. Here's the other half of that sentence. The science also shows this. People who score high on status signaling behavior aren't doing it from a position of confidence. They're doing it from a position of insecurity. Status symbols are loud because the person using them needs to be heard. The ultimate driving machine isn't for people who know they've arrived. It's for people who need others to believe they have, which means every time you've seen that BMW cut someone off and thought, typical, you were right about the behavior, but you were wrong about what it meant. It didn't mean arrogance. It meant anxiety. The kind of anxiety that gets dressed up in leather seats and a twin turbocharged engine and then driven very fast in the hope that speed feels like certainty. We are all in some way driving something that we hope will say the things we can't say out loud about ourselves. BMW drivers are just easier to spot. So, is the BMW stereotype real? Yes, partially. And the mechanism behind it is running in all of us. Brand identity, self-selection, identity armor, confirmation bias, 4 systems locked together, producing an outcome that feels like a joke about rich guys who can't signal, but is actually a window into how all of us perform who we are through the things we own. If this video made you think about your own version of the BMW, the thing you carry that does some of the identity work for you, leave a comment. I want to know what it is. And if you want to go deeper on the psychology of status, behavior, and how the things around us shape who we become, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is about.